I first got interested in architecture when I was about 14 years old, and I wanted to learn how to build. At that time, I didn't know what an architect was, other than that they did drawings for some buildings. I wanted to know why people did things the way they did. Why did they build the way they did? Why did they put, like in framing of a house, why did they put the pieces of wood together a certain way? And then I saw some buildings and pictures of buildings that were really different and that were very intriguing, and I wanted to know, well, how did they do that? Why did they do that? And I would ask builders and I would ask contractors, and they didn't know. And then as I got a little bit older and was able to move around, I began to ask the few architects and engineers that I could find, why did they do that? And basically I discovered that they didn't know either. Well, where can I go to learn why people do things the way that they do them? I discovered that this very famous architect named Frank Lloyd Wright had a school, and I wrote to them to find out if there was architects they could recommend that understood why and how Frank Lloyd Wright did things the way that he did, because his buildings were all very unusual, and he built buildings in a way that they did not confine space. The space tended to flow out of his buildings instead of feeling so that within the buildings you didn't feel trapped within that space. But ultimately I found out that they had a school. I was fortunate to be accepted into that school, and I went out to learn again, thinking all the while that I wanted to be a builder and I wanted to know how to build. But when I got into school and I began to study more, I found out that if you want to know how to build, you have to become an architect. So I found out that it's an art in addition to being a science. One of the things that we have to deal with is understanding the nature of the building site. Wherever you're going to design a building, there are certain characteristics to that site. Frank Lloyd Wright was a master at learning how to build so that he took full advantage of the site characteristics and could build a house that looked as though it belonged on the site. He used the term make the building have a sense of repose so that it sat restfully on the site and looked as though it had always been there. And in order to do that, he had to study those characteristics of the site. And so I was inspired by studying his work and seeing how he built into the sites and into the property. And they were all different because his sites were in many different parts of the world, all over the country. So I was inspired by those actual buildings that he had built and trying to see how he did that to achieve that sense of restfulness and repose and the sense of a building belonging where it was and not being forced in an uncomfortable way on that site. My favorite part of architecture is really related to the problem-solving aspect. I like to come up with creative solutions. Over the years, I have found that there's a certain gift that comes with being able to help people do that, that most people have a vague idea about what they want, and it's usually more emotional, but they really can't describe what they want or how they want it or why they want it even. And it's a rare client who's able to actually come in and sit down with me and say clearly what they want. Many people think that they're saying clearly what they want, but in reality, when you start putting the pieces together, it gets a little bit more muddy. Oftentimes, the solution to a problem comes from looking at it in a totally different way than the client themselves may have even envisioned of. They might not have thought of all the different ways that you could arrange spaces within the particular building. So architecture is more than just knowing how to weld two steel pieces together or nail two wood pieces together or build a wall here, build a wall there, use brick a certain way. It's more than all of that. It really gets beyond that physical objects into the whole arena of helping people satisfy whatever their psychological person to develop a sense of shelter, whereas another person wants a sense of security. And how do you do that? How do you make a person feel happy in the space they're in? So architecture has turned out to be a kind of a wonderful myriad of skills and insights and things. And along the way, I satisfied myself that I actually did learn how to build. And who would have told me when I was 14 years old that I would have to become an architect in order to learn how to build? Oops. That's what happens sometimes when you don't build.